welcome to JMC Live. I am your host, Jeremy Caverly. I hope you guys are remaining cool, calm, and collective. This extreme heat, excessive heat advisory, or whatever you guys call it, wherever you live. A lot to cover this week. From a campus ministry changing their name, to a church helping people with heat, update on the gay history law in California, Planned Parenthood, and the Norway bombing, and more. But let's start with Amy Winehouse. Many people don't know who she is. She is whatever you want to call it, a singer who has problems with alcohol and drugs. And a recent study showed that people that are depressed have a problem with smoking, alcohol, and drugs. And apparently, now, most people that are in the limelight of the quote-unquote high life of being a musician, you're required to travel at a rate that is not even considered normal. You have all these different concerts you have to attend, and if you have a book out, you have to sign for that, or autographs, and recordings, and practices, and all these different things, which could require from anywhere from 16 to 24 hours of needing to be awake. So, between a person's life and the different things that happen, a lot of people that are in the limelight and make a lot of money, for some reason, tend to turn to drugs and alcohol. And as anyone knows about her story, it's gone up and down. She'd have a good song, they would say, but then she'd make a lot of money, and then turn around, if something would happen, and you would spend your money on drugs, eating disorder problems, etc. And it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how much money you make, it'll never make you happy.
That's right.
That without Jesus Christ, you could end up like Amy Winehouse, dead, and in need of drugs and alcohol to make yourself kind of act normal. On another side of the spectrum, back into the United States, into Minnesota, we have a Christian radio host in a $194 million Ponzi fraud scam. And the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Minnesota is trying to work hard going through the universal brokerage services involving over 700 investors and $194 million. The reason why I'm bringing this up is just to verbatim for us to explain why we don't want to get involved with money in our ministry, because people tend to do things incorrectly. And the weird thing is, the guy that's involved in this in Minnesota, he was supposed to have a show called, and he did have a show called Follow the Money. Well, I guess it means follow the money into my pocket, and
yeah,
some of 194
out of yours.
Which leads me to another question that was asked recently. What would Jesus do if he was a politician? People compare
He wouldn't be like
Winston Churchill and Ronald Reagan and Abraham Lincoln and Jesus Christ. But would Jesus be a political hero?
No.
Depending on who you talk to, you would have to say yes, because he did talk to politicians. He did talk to religious leaders. And he ended up reshaping what happened in the Middle East for his times, even after he died. I mean, these politicians and these leaders got so afraid of him.
He inspired a people.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, he was not welcomed in his time that he was alive. He was not welcomed. So he wouldn't have even been a politician. His ideals were not welcome until centuries later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our country's founded on, the ideals of the Bible and the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus Christ. So, in his time, he was not, but in the future, he would have been. He was.
And then we go back overseas to Norwegian area. The Norway bombing just revealed recently that this guy Anders Behring Breivik, that he is a right-wing fundamentalist Christian. That is the reason why he killed people. And his favorite TV show was Dexter. And
Which
he
is about a serial
George
killer.
Orwell's 1984. And he says the church is a joke. And he says Islam is taking over. And there are Marxists all over the world. And so why kill people is my question.
He killed 85 people
went up,
at a youth camp.
Yeah,
Day before yesterday. 85 people at a youth camp.
You kill 85 people, which that I don't understand in itself. Why would you want to
go and kill kids?
Go kill kids. That's not in Jesus's frame of mind to do such a thing. And speaking of kids, we're going back over to Texas, where Texas is standing up for the rights of the unborn, pro-life as it's called, to the tune of defunding $64 million from Planned Parenthood. Now, we did talk about this before and the pros and cons of getting rid of Planned Parenthood. But all in all, getting rid of Planned Parenthood in resolves of having abortions made so easily. When there are so many millions of children aborted a year where women and men could decide not to have sex and wait because they would know that they could create a baby, which would be a consequence of having sex, instead of, well, the only thing you got to worry about, kids, is an STD because you can abort the baby. We're taking consequences away from having...
Well, no, now they're like, well, don't worry about an STD. They make pills for that now.
Yeah, so eventually they want to...
So even if you get one, you pass it on your partner, you both can take a pill, and there's no problem.
Yeah, there's like the day after pill or whatever. It's getting more crazy. Now, going over to California, the gay history law is on hold. Not sure how much longer it's going to happen. But Jerry Brown signed the SB 48, which required kindergarten to the 12th grade to teach homosexuality in history and sociology. But it's on hold because the Pacific Justice Institute has prepared and filed a referendum that would repeal the law. So more news should be coming up on that probably.
And this law has got a lot of parents mad. If you read
in the next few weeks,
read down there, a lot of parents are angry about them going to force this onto their children.
Yeah, I think it gets quite crazy.
I mean, a person that has sex a different way, just because they have a sexual relationship, people should be taught about their sexual relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and then on some good news,
can't we just teach history about people just because they did good things? Why does it have to be, well, this person who has homosexual sex, they do a sexual act that they say makes them a totally different race now just because they have sex a different way. They should be put in the history books and be taught.
Well, what's going to be taught in the history books,
ridiculous.
And what's creepy about it is they'll be taught about how it was wrong, and their point of view. They'll say, well, it wasn't wrong. They'll say words like they were persecuted and their rights were infringed upon. That's how it's going to be written. It's going to be written pro-gay, saying, well, we were dumb and we were ignorant for saying it was, a mental illness. We were dumb and ignorant for persecuting these people to the point. And I agree, there's some persecution of this, like where people were cussed at and beaten and kicked out of their families and stuff. I don't agree with any of that, but saying it's a sin.
But again,
yes.
if you are a Muslim and you become any other faith, you will be murdered by your family, excommunicated, and kicked out. Just the same as homosexual. Do we write books about these people? Are we forcing these textbooks to write about these people? No. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be. It should be not because of your lifestyle. It should be because of what you did. Okay?
Mm-hmm. But they're not doing it that way. No. And on good news, in Virginia, and I hear this might be coming to Ohio, the Remote Area Medical Health Expedition is making its 12th visit. This was on the 22nd. But what they're doing is having like a remote healthcare, I guess it's kind of like a big tractor trailer type thing going on.
They bring buses in.
Where it's a big bus, so people are getting help. Over 2 million of free medical care was provided, and over 1,400 people were helped with dental problems. Over 1,000 got an eye test. The update on this as of today, the AmeriGroup is helping keeping it going even further. And at 6 a.m., they were like doing stuff. They were giving over $2 million worth of free health care.
In America, because people are hurting because we can't get health
now check
care.
this out. They said 1,500 patients were seen Friday. Another 1,500 would probably expect to be seen on Saturday or Sunday or whatever.
But the majority of the people being seen are for dental and eye care. Do you know why that is? Because it doesn't matter if you work, you can hardly ever get eye care or dental care. People, I mean, you're lucky if you get medical. And, I mean, I don't, this Obamacare isn't going to really help much. It's just going to force us into government, and then we're going to be put on a waiting list longer and be standing in lines like at the VA, because we've already seen it, right? Haven't we, honey? We know what government-run health care is. If you, honest to goodness, want to know how government-run health care is, go ask a veteran. That's all you have to do. What do you want me to do? Why are you moving my arm?
So then the next thing...
What?
So then the next thing that's going on...
I don't know what he's wanting me to do. I'm sorry.
Arms are hitting the table, probably making the mic shake a little bit. But
well, you're touching the desk too.
I'm trying to make certain things are going smoothly here. Let's see. On to one of my friends, Mr. Alex Marashko. He's been writing for the Christian Post, and we've been sharing a lot of his stories because we support what he's doing. He has interviewed Ron Luce. So for those of you who don't know who Ron Luce is, he is the founder and president of Team Mania Ministries. If that word clicks on your mind, it should, because I went to South Africa with their Global Expeditions Department in 2000, and I was also an intern with their Honor Academy program there in Texas. What's going on, for those of you that are following big movie buffs, the movie Friends with Benefits came out, and it's not just a movie title, it's also something that is very apparent in society today.
It's better.
He's wrote a book countering the acceptance of casual sex called Friends Without Benefits. It was released last year. And he mentions, and this is a fact, kids as young as 12 are thinking kissing is a blowjob or a man kiss or whatever you want to call it. And you know, there was this one thing going around for a while where you had bracelets, and if you broke a bracelet, you got different things depending on the color you broke.
No, the thing that was going on here was, if you wore a certain bracelet, that means you've done some sexual act, or it represented how far you've gone, and that was a big thing a couple of years ago.
He was interviewed over his book, also to talk about current events like cuddle buddies and booty calls or whatever else you want to call it. And today, Team Mania Ministries is going about working through their missions trips and their camps and the Acquire the Fire and everything for over 21 years. And what Ron Luce wants to do is he wants people to realize that purity is not about not just having sex, but renewing your mind and your heart and purifying your whole body and presenting it to God and allowing God to change your life, because you can't just change your life on your own. You need Jesus Christ. We resort back to Amy Winehouse. She had the money. She could have whatever. She could have a psychiatrist. She could have any pill in the world. Yet she still had problems. The argument would be, well, she got addicted to drugs, or she got addicted to this. I said, well, if she had Jesus Christ in life, I know a bunch of people that were drug addicts, alcoholics, murderers, rapists, etc., that have found Christ. Christ has changed their life. They have been tempted, and they have learned to resist temptation. And that's what it comes down to, learning to resist different temptation. He says, in the middle of this cultural sewage, parents have to be very intent and proactive about parenting so they can help them see through the stories, such as Friends with Benefits lie, and to make a pledge for purity until the day they're married. It's not impossible. It just takes a massive amount of effort.
Yep. My sister was 25. 24. How old was she? She got married 5 years ago. Okay. So she's 20. She'll be 28 this year. So 27, 26, 25. She was 23.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband was 8 years older than her. He's in his 30s. And both of them were virgins.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible. If you truly want to save yourself for the person you want to marry, I mean, it is hard in today's society to do that. I mean, with all the temptation out there. But I truly believe, my sister did it. Her husband did it. After I got away from my ex-husband, I didn't date anybody. I waited for 7 years. And I waited on Jeremy. And it is possible. If you truly want to do it. If you truly put your mind to it that, hey, I'm going to wait for that special person that I'm meant to be with for the rest of my life. And not fall into this trap. I truly believe you can do it. I don't think it matters, if you believe this or if you believe this type of religion or that religion. I think it truly comes down to how badly do you want it? How badly do you want to save yourself? And fight against it.
And speaking about standing up for things, what if you were a ministry and you had the word Christ in your ministry, but you also had the word Crusade, and you understood and have had board of directors and various other people tell you since the 70s and 80s, please remove the word Crusade so that others that are of other religions and other cultures don't think that you're trying to incite violence and trying to destroy people. So what would you do? Would you just remove the word Crusade, or would you change your whole name of your ministry altogether? Well, Campus Crusade for Christ has made the decision for the latter. They are removing Campus Crusade for and Christ, and it's just going to be now known as the acronym CRU. Crew. Not Christ Crew, not Campus Crew, not anything else. And as of Thursday, we made the post about this, and we've had a pastor and other people comment, and that we were selfish, that this is just about removing the Crusade. So I will give you...
But here's the thing, they removed everything.
I will give you the quote.
Our argument that we said, if you're going to remove Christ out of your organization... Can I just say what I was going to say, please? Thank you. The argument that we posted out there, because they changed their name completely, took Christ out of it, because they said, well, we don't want to offend anybody anymore. Okay, so you take Christ? If we don't want to offend anybody anymore, why don't we just take Christ out of the whole Bible then?
Well, let me give you the quote from the actual organization, so you're not just hearing what we have to say.
Yeah.
So then you'll understand our reaction, which is what I wanted to do first before we went into our actual responses. So let me read you the 3 places where they are quoted. This is directly. This is Steve Sellers, the Vice President for Campus Crusade. First, they believed that their name was getting in the way of accomplishing their mission, and they want to proclaim Christ around the world. They said in the 70s and 80s they were looking to make the name change. And then furthermore, I quote, our name was becoming more and more of a hindrance. Quote, it reverted back to some other meaning related to the Middle Ages, forcing Christianity on different parts of the world. So that shows that they wanted to remove the word Crusade. But most people aren't reading the other half of this article. That's like the first scroll.
Yeah.
Here comes the next scroll. So the interview for Fox News asked the question, well, why did you remove Christ? They said, we were not trying to eliminate the word Christ from our name. We were looking for a name that would most effectively serve our mission and help us take the gospel to the world. Our mission has not changed. The acronym CRU, C-R-U, enables us to have discussions about Christ with people who might be initially turned off by, and this should stand out for you with absolutely no question that they are trying to remove the word Christ, by, and I quote, who might be initially be turned off by a more overtly Christian name, end quote. Now, why would you want to change your name if you know people are turned off by an overtly Christian name? Why do you have to pretend to be something that you're not?
That's right.
If you're not about...
In my opinion, you're bullcrapping somebody. You're pretending to be something that you're not, and then when you get somebody talking, they're like, well, wait a minute. You never said this was a Christian thing. So then that's what, in my opinion, because they practically have lied to somebody to get them to go to their crew meeting. I mean, people need to know what they're getting into. I mean, Jesus didn't just go and
So on our Twitter page, we were accused of pointing someone out when we don't have the word Christ in our name. My point is, we've never changed our name. My name is Jeremy Michael Cackley. My initials are JMC. The ministry could be Jeremy and Miranda and Christ Ministries. It's all of the above is the answer.
It is.
We haven't changed anything.
We never will.
We don't have to become crew or not crew or add the word Christ or not add the word Christ. We don't have that issue. But some people don't understand the logic of, well, it shouldn't matter what someone's name is or not. If you were going to change the name...
You are hiding the light. They're hiding it. They're saying, well, we can't, oh, they just don't like us. Well, okay, Jesus said, you're not going to be welcome if you say you come in my name. Flat out. The people will hate you. So, they're lying. You're not, in my opinion, you may reach some people, but some people are going to get awful angry if they don't know what they're coming into. If you're told, well, come to this meeting, we're going to have a meeting, and you go in, and all of a sudden it's a bunch of Satanists, or a bunch of witchcraft stuff, are you going to be happy that you were told it was something else?
So here's a quote from, I do believe, his name is Hornsby, who was involved at the Ohio State University as a student, and others. These are different quotes from different people. One says, take Christ out, become another crusade. Another one says, you are taken by the politically correct environment instead of acting counterculturally as Christ followers are called to do. That's Richard Hornsby of Kansas City. For an institution like Crusade appeared to cave to the same cultural pressure that leads school principals to harass or banned Christian groups from meeting on campus is incredibly sad. We expect the ACLU to intimidate small towns and schools by threatening to sue them. He says, I immediately thought of Paul's letter to the Romans. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It may be that CCCI, which is 3CI, or here in the Ohio, we have the 3CU stuff going on. But anyway, intentions behind the change, but on its face, the decision to drop Christ seems like an attempt to hide or mask the core identity of the group. Then they come back and say this has nothing to do with political correctness, everything to do with how we can be most effective at what God's called us to do. Most churches don't have Christ in their name, so why does it matter if we do or not? I understand you might want to change your name.
But the problem is, when you have established for 60 years, 60 years, that's longer than we've been alive, Jer.
Yeah.
When this has been established for over 60 years, Christ has been implemented into their name, into the core, and they say, well, we're going to remove it because it's just not cool with people anymore.
It's too overtly Christian.
It offends people. Well, then that's why I said, then why don't we just take Christ out of the Bible? If it is so offensive to talk about Jesus and Christ and how He loves us, and put it as our nameplate 60 years ago, as on their nameplate, say, if it was so horrible, then why don't we just take Christ out of the Bible? I mean, if we're going to go this far, we might as well go the rest of the way. That's how stupid it is.
But I see why we would get attacked, because we don't have Christ in our name, so...
That doesn't have anything to do with it.
But from someone's other point of view, they're saying, well, if you don't have Christ in your name or your ministry, then you can't talk about someone else's. I understand that attack.
What are we, Jack Van Impe now?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
That we're like Jack Van Impe, that we shouldn't be criticizing other people?
No, they said that we don't have Christ in our ministry name, so why are we talking about this? In fact...
we're talking about it because when it was founded, Christ was the core, Christ was the center for over 60 years. And now they're saying it's not cool, it's not welcome, it's offensive. Well, sooner or later, ministries is going to be offensive. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's already offensive to a lot of people. I got hung up on because people thought we were a business. When I said we're a ministry, When I said we're a ministry, they didn't want anything to do with me. So a ministries is not welcome either.
Yeah, so I mean that's the best that I can get right now as an attack from a pastor of a fairly large church and with multiple campuses, by the way. And that's the best that they can do to me. Well, I don't have a problem then. It's when you realize that someone has to change the name for something. I haven't had to change any name. I'm not going to. I might add the word Christ into it if we're really going to get in a debate over it.
Oh, I will.
I'll make it Jeremy Miranda Christ or whatever. I don't know.
JM Christ Ministry. That's what we'll name it.
I don't... JM for Christ or something. I don't know.
No,
But anyway.
JM Christ Ministries. That's what we're doing.
But, I mean, that's what I thought it was to begin with. But I understand if you want to do a name change to help and you want to make it crude, that's fine. But if you're going to say...
But they specifically said the reason we went ahead also and took Christ out of it was because they don't want anything to do with overtly Christian things. Well, so what? People have free choice. Free will. They choose. They can choose. But to take it away and then kind of, in my opinion, not giving somebody the whole scope of what this crew organization is. You know, like I said, they hand out a flyer. Come to our meeting. Come to our get together. And they don't have anything about, you know, exactly. They're about a Christian thing. That's what they're saying. They don't want to be Christian. They don't want to be pushy. But once they get in there, people are going to be like, well, they're a Christian thing, and then. Well, what if, you know, you went into a witchcraft thing? I mean, they didn't tell you this, and you show up, and they're like, well, we're going to be casting spells and calling the corners and, you know, playing with, you know, the gems and reading tarot cards. And there was nothing in the brochure that said they were going to do that. Wouldn't you be offended? I mean, shouldn't we be open? Shouldn't we be, like Paul said, not ashamed?
You would think so.
Because the enemy's plan is to deceive. Christ did not come to deceive. Crew, in my opinion, could deceive somebody into something they don't want to, that they might not want to be involved with. You know, they have a choice whether or not they want to follow Christ or not. They have a choice whether or not they get up in the morning and they wash their hair or not. We have free will. Allow yourself to be boldly claiming what you are, who you are. Unapologetic. That's what I say. If the thing has worked if the name has worked for 60 years, I say keep it. I mean, the Holy Bible hasn't changed in over 2,000. You know, but they're trying to make changes to it now. The Word is the Word.
Well, you would think the Word would be the Word, but according to this, I don't know what word they're talking about. But the argument is also on the other side that by removing Crusade and Christ and not being a direct, full-on approach to the word Christ or Christian, you're being more culturally minded. Kind of like if you go to a foreign country such as Ecuador, like Steve Saint did, they didn't just automatically throw out a Bible and say, Christ, you need to follow Christ.
No, but
that's the argument.
But my argument is this organization has been in place for 60 years.
So they're trying to become more mission-minded because they realize that less people follow Christ. So for not putting Christ up at first and telling them about it later because we can get them to show up, maybe it'll work.
But don't you think that's deceiving them a little bit?
But isn't that what most missionaries do when they go to another country to learn the language and learn the culture and then tell them about Christ? What's the difference? Is there a difference?
That's, I think, our imposing question.
I'm asking, what is your thought on that?
It's deep. And I think we ought to pose that to our listeners to comment. Because everybody's going to have, I mean, my opinion is, yeah, a lot of missionaries, I do believe, they go in with a mindset that they have to save everybody's soul. Yes, But at the same time, you have to meet their physical need before you can reach their spiritual. Meet their physical need and let God worry about their spiritual.
So would you think, from a mission standpoint, a missionary standpoint for this ministry, are they trying to realize that Christianity is not the norm in society in America anymore, and that by removing the word Christ and removing the word crusade, they are not trying to hide Christ, but find a way to come up with a name that would incite people to want to hang out, which is the word fellowship, in a current term as crew.
I understand this, but also,
so at
once you start taking Christ out of the name, how much more are you going to remove him from your daily activities?
Now, I realized that when I was younger and I went to another campus, my university...
Jeremy, we've run into that, taking Christ and biblical things out, even in the churches.
Well, let me explain my actual workings with this ministry, because I've been involved with them. In Texas, I actually gone and met with their chaplain and all the other people. That you would go in, there were Bibles on the table. There was like a Christian music video thing playing in the corner, and various people on the phone. Some people were playing chess, some were doing homework, just hanging out. And then they would have like a Bible study like once a week, and they had the schedule up on the board and contact info, and you can contact these people for prayer if you needed that. They wanted you to get involved playing basketball and all these different things. So it might bring people more of an outreach similar to like a Salvation Army type thing where they're on the street with the donuts and everything a long time ago. But I completely understand if you already have something established and you change it. It'd be like if the Salvation Army decided to turn their names into SS. Everyone would probably start calling them Hitler or something.
Yeah.
You know? But I agree and I disagree at the same time, because both sides of my brain are telling me two different things.
But look at the way society's going. Even the churches, they're not even teaching all of the Bible anymore. They're not I mean, that's what they even said. We've discussed it about how the younger generations are not being prepared to take over the church. They have dumbed down the Gospels to the point where, remember we read that article from that youth pastor, youth director helper? He said he went to a youth night and there was really nothing about Christ. I mean, and he didn't want to be involved with this organization anymore. He didn't name the organization, but he said, I no longer could deal with this because they weren't, it was just, there was nothing. There was nothing, no meat. There was nothing, holy scriptural about what they were doing. It was just a place to get kids to come. And say, oh, look, you can be cool. Christians are cool. Everybody loves Christians. We're cool. That's not true. So, the church is dumbing down their preaching, their teachings. Now we've got, this is what I mean by, they're more concerned about being politically correct.
Well, they say they're not about being politically correct. What they're trying to do is to go and become the coolest group on campus with the most people showing up.
Numbers. So they're more important. So are we saying they're more focused on numbers? Popularity.
Because this is about getting more people to show up. And there's two things that happen when you have more people show up. One is more people can get saved, or more people could get help. And then,
but at the same time,
and then on the other side, what can happen is more donations can come in. So it's really a multi thing here.
But my point is, if they're dumbing down their name to take Christ even out of their name, how much more are they going to dumb down their curriculum that they're going to teach? I mean, if they're just going to...
They're not really a curriculum. Like the one here in Ohio, I tried to go several times, made several phone calls, and no one ever returned my calls. I knocked on their door when it was supposed to be open. And even a closer, more to home local ministry has not returned my calls either, and they don't even know who I am. So, if people aren't available, or if they are, and everything continues to get, as you're saying, Miranda, less focused on Christ and more focused on a cultural structure of let's play basketball and football, When is
socializing?
Our time? Yeah, if it just becomes a big social event, and
well, churches are even doing that now. It's about coming in and having a big sound system, big speakers, big screens, and having a concert, and then you just go home. If you had a moment with the Lord, write it down on a piece of paper, and we'll call you later. I mean, is that honestly what we have become?
Our church is just a Sunday thing, or a cruise.
It's barely a Sunday thing anymore.
The problem is in America, it's people with our iPhones and iPads, and we can do Facebook and Twitter on our phones, and text on our phones, and we are all about how quickly we can get something done. So, which is really cool. The iPhone, iPad Touch. If you have a church that's connected to YouVersion, which is a virtual free Bible, and it's the biggest downloaded app ever. You can see if your church is online and has a live service. You can look at your notes and all these things. We have all this media access, free stuff that you can do, so you can get more connected to your church, more connected to your pastors and everything.
But the
other side of it is, all we're doing is having an hour or 2 hour service, and no one's wanting to write you back. No one's wanting to call you back, because people just want to be friends with their friends, and they don't want to get outside of their comfort zones and be friends with people different than them.
The other problem is, all this, instead of wanting to have there's no services during the week. There's no get-togethers during the week. It's one service either in the morning or the evening on a Sunday, and if you have to work, well, I'm sorry. You don't get a church service. What they say now is, we don't have the money to keep the church open longer than that. Well, then if you don't have the money, then get rid of these big buildings. Cut down on the electricity. You don't need all those big sound systems. People over in Africa are having church in a shack.
Yeah, speaking of having church, when I was in South Africa myself, I carried a guitar on my back, climbed a mountain, and led worship on the top of a mountain. There was no sound system on this mountain trip.
But this is what I mean by dumbing down the scriptures, dumbing down the gospel. The whole point of our Christian walk. They're dumbing it down. I mean, if we don't take a stand, I mean, people are changing their names to appease people because they're not popular. So, how much more are we going to take away from ourselves? How much more of our freedoms are we going to allow to be taken away?
It's so weird. It's almost like going to church is kind of like going to McDonald's. It's an event. I remember when I was a kid, you go to McDonald's, most people wanted to eat inside. Now we're going to go through the drive-thru, and churches become drive-thru ministries.
That's right.
You know,
they want their quick fix.
You know, and like in the 70s, the big argument was, well, people wanted to have all this big emotional hoopla, so, you know, the music stuff changed. The argument was some people were actually literally saying that certain chords were of the devil. I've heard about this stuff. My grandmother told me about it. She said, oh yeah, that minor chords were considered of the devil, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow. So, when it comes to stories like this, and it comes to different things, you have to be careful if you're going to make a ministry change name, and if you are going to just change it to Crew, be careful how you're going to answer this question. Because as you're going to see, some people are going to like it and some people aren't. And I guarantee you there will be a lot of sponsors and other people that were involved don't want to be involved because you changed your name. It's no different than if you are in the Salvation Army or Methodist Wesleyan group where you change pastors and you move. And you're told by a hierarchy leadership where you're going to go, when you're going to go, and when you're going to leave. And sometimes you don't have more than 2 or 3 days notice.
And people say, well, I'm not going to that church because I like those pastors better. And then there's a split.
What we have done in society is we have caused our own conflicts. If it's not music, and if it's not baptism, pre-trib, post-trib.
Homosexuality, it's not a sin. It's not a sin anymore. The Bible doesn't say anything about that. You can preach and be a homosexual. You can do everything in the church and be a homosexual.
You know what's crazy? You can be anything in the world. You can be any type of sinner in the world, and you can still go to church. It doesn't matter. Because there's no... The weird thing is, for those that don't attend church, they think you have to show up with some kind of pass at the door letting everybody know what you've done and what you've not done. It doesn't matter what you've done. Yes, you can go to church, be homosexual, or a murderer, or a rapist, or a pedophile, or a bestiality.
I'm talking about leadership.
And people in the leadership, they're going to have that too, because you're going to have struggles. You're going to be tempted. Now,
when they openly say it's not a sin, when the Bible states it is.
See, the reason why I have to break this down is people don't understand what we mean by that. Mm-hmm. When we say, well, you can't go to church to be this, you can't do this, you can't do that. What we mean is if you're going to be involved in any form of leadership, and let's say, yeah, you did struggle, and you had an affair, or you slept with a man, or whatever it is you did. If you're going to continue to hide everything that you do, and when people find out, you sit here and say, there's nothing wrong with it, it's okay.
The Bible doesn't say anything.
You don't know how bad Miranda is, and Miranda's a goofball, so I'll go and sleep with a cheese puff ball, or whatever, and come out and say these things, and I said something funny, but imagine if I said, I'm blah, blah, then there's a problem. Mm-hmm. And the problem gets even bigger and becomes even a worse situation.
When they start to justify their sins is when people start justifying their bad behaviors, their bad habits, their bad choices. They start justifying, saying, well, I did this because blah, blah, blah. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not hurting anybody.
And that's the problem I don't ever understand.
But your actions do affect others. When pastors are saying homosexuality is not a sin, we can have openly gay priests, clergy, and preachers and
what
teachers.
What time period was that movie that we watched the other night?
It was 1452.
Alright, so pretty much we have become the 1400s all over again, where clergy and everybody are doing whatever they want. Next thing we'll have, and they are trying to do it in California, put animals on trial again. That's what we were watching something about, a documentary about it.
Yeah, how back in the 15th century, 16th century, and they would put animals on trial for crimes. And, I mean, this is kind of how crazy we're starting to get, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think...
just as crazy as that. We're supposed to be beyond this. We're supposed to be more civilized. I'm thinking, okay.
No, we're not becoming more civilized, because... history repeats itself, guys. Yeah, we're getting faster with some technologies and computer speeds, and some graphics and things like that. But all in all, eventually, everything's just going to come down to the wire, where nothing is going to work and things are going to fall apart.
If we keep justifying our actions that are sinful and selfish, and inevitably harm people.
Yeah, and
if we keep justifying that, we're just repeating history of what past civilizations have done, and Rome, everything was okay. People were murdered in public for entertainment. Mm-hmm. I mean.
Yeah, I think...
We have to take a stand. We have to take a stand. We can't allow history to repeat itself.
Yep.
We can't.
Why
can't we learn from history? We should be learning from the mistakes of our ancestors in the past.
And for some reason we're not. We're just wanting to continue to do the weird stuff that we did before. And it's not changing. I
mean, homosexuality is nothing new. People dumbing down the scriptures for their own gain is nothing new. Nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun, and people think, oh well, this has never happened before. Oh yeah, right. It has to.
We might have some new words in our vocabulary, but
it still describes the same thing.
Yep, same thing repeated over and over again, and it doesn't. People don't want to change or whatever, then that's what happens. But I tell you, the time will come where all this will come to a point, and the decisions that we make on earth, how we deal with others and everyone else, will place us in a situation where choices will have to be made and things will have to happen. And on that note, we're going to end tonight's show. And I want you to realize that your actions matter, because depending on how you act around certain people, other people will act differently too. And the more that you continue to work forward and trying to serve Christ or whatever it is you're trying to do, people are watching you. And on that note, this has been JMC Live. Good night, and God bless.